Hello and welcome back to another edition of the Jacob and Jacob podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Hare. Alongside me is my co-host, Jacob Perlbaum. And today we are lucky to be joined by the founder and CEO of Pro Football Focus, Neil Hornsby. Thanks for being with us today, Neil.
Hi guys, how you doing?
So before we start the real interview, I got to ask you a question. As I'm sure you're a big football junkie, this year's been the closest MVP race that I can remember in a while. Right now, who do you have taking home the MVP award?
It's a good question, and I will answer it, but I'll just say up front that when I started PFF, it was really because of the love of football. But as things have grown, and obviously we've got bigger as a company, I've spent a lot more time on the business side of things,
Yeah.
and a lot less time on the football side of things. So my football knowledge isn't quite what it used to be. I typically, I don't go on any podcasts normally. I typically stay on business side of things. And we have a lot of guys who are just off the charts good and who know a ton more than I. But on that, I will answer your question. The person that I would say is Aaron Rodgers. I don't think it's that close. Clearly, Patrick Mahomes is that good, but he's also got the best tight end in football, the best play calling coach in football. He's also got the best deep threat in football, and a pretty reasonably stacked defense that knows what to do and been there before. Aaron Rodgers, on the other hand, has got Devontae Adams, a decent offensive line, but I just think Aaron Rodgers has done more for his team this year than Patrick Mahomes has done for his team, and has generally been more consistent. I think Patrick's had more top-end, unbelievable stuff, and the game that we just saw yesterday was a clear example of that. Some unbelievable top-end stuff, but also a little bit ropey stuff thrown in between. I think other than the Buccaneers game where Aaron was really bad, I think he's generally been fantastically good. So I would go with Aaron Rodgers.
All right, so let's get right into our interview. So how and why did you start PFF?
Yeah, so it was nothing more. It was never designed to be anything more than a hobby. I was a business consultant. I had my own little business consultancy back in the day. That sounds a lot more grandiose than it actually was. But I was doing very well. We were making a lot of money. It was fine. But football was always something that I was interested in, and it just became a bit of a hobby. I had some money to spare, so I was able to code some stuff up, and it was really only ever designed for me and, my love of football, and you build what you like. So that was how it started. And if you'd have told me back in 2006, 2007, when we really started doing this, that we would have all 32 NFL teams, 86 of the FBS teams,
Wow.
Every single network taking our data in some way, shape or form, the number of consumer customers that we've got, and that we'd be employing at the end of this year, it'll be about 135 people full time. I would just have laughed you off the planet. I would have said that's never going to happen in a million years. But yeah, so it started purely as a hobby, and it just grew from there, really.
So what allowed the PFF to take off and grow to become what it is today?
I think more than anything else, it was probably a different and unique outlook. We are still the only company that grades every player on every play. I mean, people have come along and tried to do things with varying degrees of success from a standpoint of using the NGS data, the tracking data in the shoulder pads. But as you've seen on some occasions, people have pushed it beyond what the capabilities are to do that type of thing. People have tried to do it without understanding football and its nuances at its deepest level. And I think that hasn't been ideal. But the idea that we grade every player, we do it with human beings, that we have various layers of context that are taken into account, that the amount of effort that we put into getting these things right and the grades right, is probably what the unique factor is, or was and still is. The idea that we grade a player based on the individual player done by a human being.
So one guy who's been very involved with the company is Cris Collinsworth. Tell us about how that partnership sort of developed and where it started.
Well, it started with a phone call or an email, actually. So Cris tells the story far better than I am, but then again, as I always say, but Cris, you tell it better than me because you're paid to speak. You're paid to communicate, and I'm not the world's foremost communicator. But no, Cris tells his story better than me, but you're going to have to do it with me because we haven't got Cris Collinsworth. So Cris was looking for, they were asking him to do a post-game show, something after Sunday Night Football. And as he said at the time, I really was struggling to think how I'm going to do this. I'm preparing for the game. How am I going to watch all these games? And I'm not prepared to dial it in like a lot of these people do and talk about things that they haven't seen. So what am I going to do? Or at least had somebody seen on my behalf. So he was browsing around the websites and he saw our site and he saw some graded depth charts or color-coded depth charts that we had. On the result of that, he spent $26.99, which was what it cost for a subscription back in the day. And then he got in, he liked what he saw, and he sent an email and said, can somebody give me a call? Here's my phone number. Could somebody give me a call and tell me a little bit more? So about 2.5 minutes later, he got a call from me in the UK at the time. And as soon as he heard the British accent, the way he tells it, he was thinking, I've just taken my $26.99 to the top of a large building and tossed it off, because clearly, this British guy isn't going to know anything about football. And he said he was annoyed at the time, and secretly annoyed. So he decided to teach me a lesson by asking me a lot of football related questions he thought I wouldn't know the answer to. Now, that was his side of events. That sounds like it was a very hard conversation, but in typical Cris fashion, it was just his usual charming self. And he asked me some relatively straightforward questions about football, and I answered them. But I think when he really got excited was, I told him we had 13 NFL clients already, and he said, what, you working with 13 people? The 13 NFL teams? I said, yeah. He said, but, like a lot of people say they're working with NFL teams, but really what it means is they've sent them a letter and they've had some conversations. What people are. I said, no, we're legitimate. I think I probably thought we were one of those groups. So he said, what, they're paying you money? I said, yeah, 13 NFL teams are paying us money to provide them with services. So at that stage, he was blown away. We then talked probably every day for the next few days. I think about 10 days later, he made an offer to become the majority shareholder of the company.
Wow. And
then 10 weeks later, the deal was done. We were signed, and I was on my way to sunny, not so sunny Cincinnati. So me and my family have been here ever since. We've lived here for 60 years now. We absolutely love it, and we'll not go back. We're all green card holders, and in a little period of time, another couple of years, we'll become citizens.
So, I gotta ask you, how did your love for football first begin in the UK? Because is the NFL popular over there?
So this is going to age me, but back when I was in college, 1983, they started a new channel. The marketing guys went overboard because there was only 3 TV channels back in the UK in those days. And they had a new channel and they called it Channel 4. And that was it. So they needed content. They needed cheap content, obviously. And what was cheap back in the day, what could they get hold of but NFL? They showed at 6 o'clock on a Sunday, 6 o'clock in the evening, highlights from the previous week. So when the games were actually being played, they were showing highlights at that particular time the week after. and there were about an hour's worth of condensed highlights. And I really just loved that right from the word go. It was fabulous. I'd always been a bit of a rugby fan, and this was putting rugby on steroids as far as I was concerned. So it was it was just fantastic. And people will always say that I'm a bit of an obsessive, and when I start on something, you know, it's either do it properly or don't do it at all. And I guess I got obsessed about it and moved on from there.
Yeah, I like that motto. That's how I live too. But my other question for you is, has any NFL teams ever reached out to you to work in their front office?
No,
Not
no,
yet.
it would be wonderful of the ego to say so. I did get I was headhunted once to not necessarily go into a front office, but to run an analytics team for more than just the NFL team, but a number of teams within a person's franchise. But when you design your own job, when there is no job in the world better than mine, literally, to me, I mean, clearly other people would think there is, but to me, when you've designed your own job, when you get to do whatever you want to do on a daily basis, and you do the thing that you love, and you grow up with a group of people that's, you know, a number of them have been with me now over 12, 13 years, you know, we call it the PFF family, you know, we just, you know, I love being here. I love being with the guy. They're tremendous. Every day they make me look good. And that's a great place to be. But, you know, when you design your own job, when you design everything about it, then why wouldn't you then love it and want to do that for the rest of your life? And the other thing is, I have the best boss on the planet. I say this constantly and people think I'm just blowing smoke, but it's true. Cris has just been utterly fabulous. You know, I've always looked at this company as I've got 4 boys, and I looked at this company as the daughter I never had. I always wanted to have a daughter, and I never got one. So I treat this company like, as I said, the daughter I didn't have. And Cris is, when you sell that company, or you sell the majority share in it, you do a lot of due diligence. You try as best you can to understand the person that's buying it, and their, you know, what they want to do with it. And I did as good a job as I thought I could do. But my estimation of Cris Collinsworth from that was very, very high. It was up here. But whatever it was, he's just exceeded that. In everything he's done, he's been tremendous. He's been the best partner, the best boss I've ever had, and I've had some really good bosses, you know, in my career. And he's been every bit the best. He's just been tremendous. So it's, you know, when you've got a great boss, you've got a great set of people who make you look good every day, and you get to do what you want, then why would you want to be anywhere else?
So from a user standpoint for Pro Football Focus, for someone who gets a subscription, what would you say people gain the most from when they get to go on and look at the stats, see all the grading? What would you say that sort of like gives them? What does that gain the most from for them?
Yeah, I look upon it as a tool. I think if people criticize us at all, they tend to criticize us because they have a view that we think that our stuff is definitive. You know, that our grade is this grade's definitive. You know, this is it. He's rated 89.2, and this guy who's rated 89.0 isn't as good. It's like, no, it's a tool. It's like everything that we're providing you is an additional tool to look at. Now, if you take every single quarterback metric there is and look at stability mathematically, then you'll find ours is the most stable. It's not surprising because there's the most effort is put into it, you know, and into determining it. So I'd be a little bit disappointed if it wasn't really, but it's still a tool. It's still just a tool. It's still a tool to help you understand football. What we do is to help people understand football more, whether it be an NFL coach, whether it be an NFL general manager. It's simply a tool to help them put into their bag of tools and pull out when it's the most appropriate one for use. Simple and straightforward as that. And we try and add more tools to it. We try and make it more robust as time goes on. But that's what it is. It's just a tool to be used. I think it's a very, very good tool. I think it's the best on the market. I think it does what it says, but it's still simply a tool that people put into things. I'll give you an example of something that just a misunderstanding that sometimes comes about. So Robert Saleh, the defensive coordinator for San Francisco, he was in Jacksonville previous to that. And then one of our guys, a guy called Bobby Slowick, who worked for us for a number of years, then got a job with 49ers. And Bobby went to work as a QC working under Robert. And Robert, said, yeah, PFF, he said, some of the stuff I like, but the grades, they just don't get the grades right. And Bobby said, I don't know what you mean. What do you mean, Robert? And Robert had said, well, take Tevin Smith, for example. Telvin Smith, sorry. Take Telvin Smith. He's a really good player, and PFF had him rated pretty low last year. And Bobby had said, well, what do you mean? I didn't think he played particularly well last year. And Robert had said, well, yeah, but he's a good player. And that's it. People at the NFL and people throughout have a view of their player as a talent level. They have it, that's it. It's a talent level. Telvin Smith's a good player. But they accept that they go up and down on that scale. And sometimes they don't play. All we're doing is we're just telling you where on the scale they currently are in our opinion. We're not trying to tell you anything. Now, I know we got into a little bit of a problem a little while ago for the Josh Allen. The Josh Allen scenario. Josh Allen is a really, really interesting case because he's an outlier. He is one of the few people who have ever been able to move their accuracy up. So if you're looking at a player and you are reporting the fact that they are inaccurate, and in the past, nobody or very, very few people have ever been able to move their accuracy up, on the balance of probabilities, that person is likely to blow out from what you've seen. Now, Josh Allen, credit to him, credit to an unbelievable performance, an unbelievable, in being an outlier. He has been able to move himself, and probably if we had thought about it a little bit longer, but you can't really say these things, the amount of times he's thrown himself headfirst into a pile to try and pick up a first down. Sorry.
Every week I feel like the man's taking a hit and the trainers come out to look at him.
Yeah. He's just got a focus to get better. The kid's got a focus to get better. And, that's one of the things that we believe in PFF, but it's very, very difficult to put a number on that. And what it is we can look at his performance or we can look at his improvement and say, what a tremendous job he's done. But the truth of it is, it's still an outlier. It's not an unreasonable thing to say, hasn't done well at Wyoming, hasn't been accurate at Wyoming, hasn't done well in his first year, hasn't done well in his second. What's to suggest that he's going to do much better in his third year? That's a perfectly reasonable thing. Perhaps we went a little bit overboard in saying that at times, but it's a perfectly reasonable thing to say. Now, the fact that he's an outlier doesn't make us wrong. It just means that Josh Allen has done something that very, very, very few people have ever achieved, which is improve their accuracy levels as a quarterback. But credit to him. He's tremendous. And the Buffalo Bills in the playoffs, I'm sure the Buffalo Bills fans are just absolutely delighted with what they've got. But I can't believe there weren't a few of them that watching some of the throws that he put together last year, some of the deep passes and some of the stuff, particularly against Houston in the playoff game, weren't just a little bit concerned themselves,
So as a big Eagles fan, I'm only scared to see what Carson Wentz's grade is this season. But what do you make of the quarterback situation for 2021 in the future between Carson and Jalen Hurts?
It was funny. Was it did Pedersen just go out this morning and say that they needed to look at the tape to make a decision on the QB for next week?
There's nothing to look at.
There's nothing
nothing to
with
look
Carson
at.
Wentz this season, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, as one of our guys said, is the backup job now up for debate as well? Because Jalen Hurts he was that close to getting them, and he still could get them. I did my analysis of who's going to win that division, and I think it's the Eagles, frankly.
Right now, still?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
right.
I did. ESPN have got a thing, like a little thing where you put in the results of the coming games, and I put in my results for the 2 Eagles games coming up. I think one's against the Cowboys. Who's the other one against?
Washington.
Washington. I had them winning both. So if they win both, and other results go in their favor, I think they go through. So I still think the Eagles will go through because I think Jalen Hurts is clearly, one of our guys was laughing because they were saying, a few weeks ago he said that Jalen Hurts was the best quarterback in the NFC East.
Mm-hmm. I actually
probably true right about now. It's certainly not Dwayne Haskins from what we saw in Seattle yesterday. It's it's certainly not Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
Andy Dalton maybe. And it certainly ain't Colt McCoy either. So, it might not even be. I mean, Daniel Jones is probably the legitimately the best, but, it's not a great group. Well, obviously, Dak Prescott's the best, but, it's not a great group, is it? And Jalen's, I mean, he's done really well, and that his running ability just brings a whole new dimension to the thing. People used to say Carson Wentz is a runner. Yeah, sort of, not really.
I think that's what derailed him because the Eagles brought in Carson Wentz to sort of be an athletic, mobile quarterback. And in the past 2 seasons, his ability to run the ball has digressed significantly, and especially this season. And it just really hurt his overall game. So I think that when you look at a guy like Hurts, he adds a whole new dynamic to the offense. And past 2 games, it's really helped the Eagles.
Yeah. I think the wide receivers say that, it seemed like they've stepped up a little bit, but as well. But I just feel the overall team has responded to him. And the other thing you've got to think about is that offensive line now is not ideal by any stretch of the imagination. And Wentz for so many weeks tried to make something out of that really wasn't there. I mean, he could have taken a lesson from Joe Burrow, to be honest, playing behind a far worse offensive line than the Eagles have got in terms of knowing when to bail on a play. I mean, I know Burrow got injured. That's just an unfortunate, it's just a one-off play. But, if you've got a rookie who's playing behind a worse offensive line that's being more sensible with the ball than you are, you've got to know when a play's over and when a play's not over. And it just felt like Wentz lost all sense of reality. So, I mean, the one thing you're never going to question is his toughness, right? But although I have to say this whole thing about saying he doesn't want to play, I mean, everybody's going to say they don't want to play as a backup, but surely the best thing to do is just to keep your head down and say, look, we'll move on to next season and see where we end up.
Yep, exactly. So before we wrap up the interview, we have one last question. What's your Super Bowl prediction for this season?
Well, it's the Kansas City Chiefs, isn't it? You can't really say. I mean, the only team that's got any chance against them, I suspect, is every team's got a chance against them, And Mahomes has had his in and out, he's in and out. But have you ever, as somebody, looked at 3rd and 20 and thought, oh, they've got a chance here? But that's what you do every time with Kansas City. Every time they're in 3rd and ridiculous, you're expecting him to be able to pull something out. And, it's got to be Kansas City with Buffalo. I don't think the Eagles, I don't think the Steelers have got any chance. It wouldn't even surprise me if the Browns end up winning that division. If the Browns win out, and the which would mean that I think the Steelers lose both their last games. One which is to the Colts, and then the other one is to the Browns. That's eminently possible, yeah. Particularly watching the way Baker Mayfield played last night, it was off the charts good. So that's I think it's just Buffalo or Kansas City. I suppose the wild card, sorry to throw this one in, is the Titans. If the Titans could find an offensive coordinator who knew what they were doing and could, stop running on first down consistently, then if they used those weapons that they've got on a better, in a better way, then the Titans are always going to be dangerous with those weapons. Can you imagine having Delaney Walker and that lot? Having Delaney Walker back. So anyway, Kansas City Chiefs. And then if he's my MVP, I'm going to have to go with him as we're going to have to go with the Green Bay Packers. Plus the fact I may or may not have a little bit of money on the Green Bay Packers that I got at 20-1 early. I may or may not earlier on in the year. So who knows? But no, that's my Super Bowl and Kansas City to win.
I like that pick.
Well,
it's an easy one, isn't it? Let's go with what we know.
Yeah, for sure. So thank you so much for joining us today, Neil. And to our viewers out there, if you haven't already, go check out PFF. It's a great website.
All right, guys.